What's up? Today I am going to teach you about taking out some tokens out of your fork. So if you're adjusting your air in your fork and you're finding you're still not able to get the right sag, or that you're still not using all of your travel, and you're someone like me that's really light, you might have too many tokens in your fork and it's causing it to ramp up too much. So I'm going to show you how to do it. Super easy and it can make a big difference. Okay, so what you're going to need is your bike, obviously, a socket and a socket wrench. For Fox 36s and Fox 38s, it's a 32mm socket. If it's a Fox 34, it's a smaller size socket, and I think it's a 28, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. And you're going to need a shock pump. Biggest thing with the socket is you can technically use a normal 32mm socket. The difference between this Fox specific one, as you can see, it's really flushed. Whereas a normal socket kind of has like a bit of a bezel on it, and that doesn't sit flush on your fork that has a little bezel, so you can scratch it up. So if you're going to use a normal socket, proceed with caution. You can scratch or wreck your fork. First thing you need to do is take off your dust cap here. So lefty loosey, righty tighty for all you people who can't remember, and I'm calling myself out on that. And then the next thing you're going to do is let out all of the air out of your fork. You don't want to just pop this open, so make sure you release all the air out of your fork, and you can do that just by letting around. Okay, so now we're going to take out the top here. So put that on. I like to brace my handlebars against my shoulder because it is pretty tight. Now when you're doing this, make sure your hands are clean, and if you're putting any tokens in, make sure two things. One, they are clean, there's no oil or any dust on them, and two, that you have the right tokens. The tokens inside are different for a 38 and a 36, so you can't use a 36 token with a 38. So as you can see, I have 2 tokens in mine. If you're a heavier person, you can add tokens. Just double check how many you can put in your bike, because you can only put so many. I'm going to take 1 token out, so all you do is literally just unclip it like that, and then make sure it's clean, and I'm going to put it back in. Alright, so my token is now out, and I'm just going to tighten this back up. Okay, once it's back on, you do want it to be tight. Do not over tighten. There is a specific setting for torque wrench for it. I just like to make sure it's tight, but you're not trying to He-Man it on, because you can over tighten. So snug, but we're not trying to break the socket wrench. Good. So then the next thing to do is put your shock pump on. So make sure it's threaded all the way on. If it's not all the way on, it's not going to read properly. And then you're going to pump it up, and pump it up to whatever the recommended setting is. Mine is going to be like 68 to 70 psi. So you just got to pump it up and then check your sag. So what I like to do is seat down, find something you can hold on to, get on your bike. Now when you're getting on your bike and then you're standing up, you don't want to be putting like a bunch of motion into your fork. Also make sure your little rubber O-ring is all the way down, or if you don't have an O-ring, then have someone help you measure. Now when you get up, you want to be standing on your bike like you're going to be riding it, with like equal pressure in your ready position. And you don't want to be bouncing a bunch, because you don't want to make the fork all of a sudden plunge. So just kind of your normal body pressure. I like to put the dropper up and then balance. And then you're going to want to stay in this position for at least 10 seconds. Sometimes the fork just takes a second to initiate, so kind of putting your normal riding pressure on it without bouncing. Again, no bouncing. Once that's done, you want to get off of your bike again without making any big motions or causing any deep plunges. So you don't want to be bouncing to affect this. And then we're going to measure this. Okay, so my fork is 170 mils of travel. So I'm going to look at it here, and that's 170. So I am at about 30 mils. So I'm just slightly under 20% sag. So I'm aiming for a plush sag, so want to be about 20%. So I just release a little bit more air, and then I should be right at that sag. 12% is a more firm sag, so somewhere between 12 and 20%. If it's not what you want, then you'll either add air or release air, and then try that again. This is basically exactly where I want it, so I'm good. and then ride it and see how it feels, and you can adjust from there, but that's a good starting point to see how it feels. All right, so now I got the new spacers in there. This is tightened off. Last thing you want to do, make sure this is nice and clean, and then we're going to screw this dust cap back on, and you are done. You just changed your first volume spacer. Good job.